Hey guys, tonight we're diving into one of those stories where the line between hospitality and horror becomes so thin. You might not survive this. Imagine a desert inn, its sign swaying in the dry Nevada wind, lantern light trembling against cracked wooden walls. That's where you are tonight, inside the Black Raven Inn, 1869. Before you dive deeper into this chilling truth, consider hitting like and subscribing, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with the time and place you're watching, so I know you're still out there. And we'll dive into tonight's journey together. The room smells faintly of coal oil and cooked meat, though you notice something sharper beneath it: metal, bitter, almost like rust. You lay your travel bag down, boots heavy with dust from the Silver Creek Trail, and for a moment you breathe relief. The sisters who own this place smile too warmly, their words polite, yet their eyes study you longer than they should. You try to ignore it, convincing yourself that after weeks on the trail, any kindness feels unsettling. But when the door closes behind you, silence presses in. The walls seem too thick, muffling even the wind outside. Your whiskey burns as it goes down, and then your hands tremble, though the night isn't cold. Across the hallway, faint footsteps echo, too slow, too deliberate. A lock clicks in a room that shouldn't have been occupied. You tell yourself to sleep, but your heart won't obey. The lantern flickers, shadows stretch across the ceiling, and you wonder if someone is standing just beyond the door, waiting. By morning, no one will see you ride out of Silver Creek. No one will even remember the name you signed into the ledger. You find yourself stepping back into Nevada territory. The year 1869. The frontier is raw, unsettled, and violent. A place where men dig into the earth with bleeding hands, hoping to strike silver and transform their lives overnight. You ride into Silver Creek, a mining town that clings to survival against desert winds and lawless roads. The settlement is a crooked row of buildings, a general store with creaking shutters, a blacksmith's forge that never cools, and standing taller than the rest, the freshly painted sign of the Black Raven Inn. You hear whispers about its sudden appearance. Just a year ago, this town had nothing more than a dingy saloon where miners drank rot-gut whiskey until their fists solved every argument. Now, out of nowhere, two sisters from the East Nora and Evelyn Harper have set up a business that feels almost out of place. Glass windows imported at great expense, polished floors that catch lantern light, and curtains of fine lace that look absurd against the dust blowing through the valley. The story told in the settlement is simple: two respectable women seeking opportunity. But you know better. You see the way men lower their voices when they mention them. You hear the unease in their laughter. No one knows where the sisters came from. They paid for the property in gold coin, no debts, no questions. And in a land where strangers usually wear their desperation on their sleeves, the Harpers arrived too prepared, too polished, too sure of themselves. Nora, the elder, is the face of the inn. When you step through the door, she greets you with a smile that feels carefully rehearsed. Every word smooth, every gesture deliberate. Her auburn hair is pinned in perfect order despite the desert dust, and her eyes fix on you with a weight that makes you talk more than you mean to. She asks where you've traveled from, how long you've been on the trail, what kind of work brings you here. Somehow, you answer it all, even the things you normally guard. Evelyn, the younger, lingers in the background. You hardly hear her voice, only the quiet shuffle of her shoes across the floorboards, the silent way she clears tables or disappears up the stairwell. When she does look at you, it's as though her eyes do not blink, and you feel the sudden urge to shift away, though you cannot explain why. She manages the upstairs rooms, and there's something unsettling about how quickly she appears whenever a guest requests anything. Silver Creek itself feels like cursed ground. Before the inn was ever built, prospectors fought bitterly over claims in the nearby hills. Knives flashed in the moonlight, revolvers settled disputes, and more than once, a body was dragged out of the creek with stones tied to its ankles. The Apaches avoided the place altogether, saying the canyon carried bad spirits, that the ground itself swallowed men whole. You don't know if it's superstition or something darker, but the moment you arrive, you feel watched, as though the desert has eyes. The Harpers seized on that tension. Their inn is a beacon in the dust promising safety, warmth, and refinement to men who've known only the brutality of tents and dugouts. The Black Raven offers soft bedding, real whiskey, and meals that remind you of the East. For a price, you can escape the filth of the camps and pretend for a night that civilization has reached even this lawless corner. And that is exactly the illusion Nora and Evelyn want you to believe. But behind the curtains, their habits raise suspicion. You hear the storekeeper grumble about Nora buying unusual things, lye soap, in quantities no house would ever need, barrels of coal oil, tools meant for digging, though no mine belongs to them. Once, a ranch hand swears he saw Evelyn slip out at dawn with her gloves stained dark, carrying a shovel across her shoulder. When asked, she gave no answer, only that small, chilling smile. Yet no one dares accuse them outright. In a town where law is thin and justice rides days away on horseback, survival often means silence. The sheriff himself drinks at the inn, and you've noticed how his debts seem to vanish after private meetings with Nora. The newspaper editor in Carson once wrote a line about men disappearing after passing through Silver Creek, but no such articles appeared again. Money and fear close mouths quicker than bullets. You feel the contradiction in every corner of the inn. During the day, laughter spills from the saloon, boots stamp against the polished floors, and men toast their fortunes under Nora's approving gaze. But when night falls, shadows gather along the staircase. Evelyn's steps sound too deliberate as she guides wealthy travelers to the premium rooms at the far end of the second floor. You hear the doors close, the bolts slide into place, and then nothing, just silence so heavy it makes your chest achy. In your mind, you start piecing it together: the missing investors from the East, the luggage that never leaves the inn, the forged letters sent to families claiming sudden detours. Still, you hesitate to speak, because here in Silver Creek, everyone knows, but no one dares to know too much. You begin to realize that this land doesn't simply breed violence, it shelters it. And the Harper sisters, with their perfect manners and unreadable eyes, are not merely surviving on the frontier, they are thriving. Every brick, every curtain, every lantern in the Black Raven Inn feels like part of a stage, a carefully crafted illusion designed to lure you deeper until escape is no longer possible. As the sun drops behind the Nevada hills, casting the desert in blood-red light, you understand the truth. Civilization has not reached Silver Creek. What waits here in the Black Raven is not comfort, not safety, but something older, hungrier, and infinitely patient. The night feels heavier than usual when the first true disappearance takes place. You remember his name, Jonathan Hale, a mining engineer from Chicago, arriving with the confident stride of a man who has money in his pocket and papers in his satchel. He enters the Black Raven Inn, dusty from the road, yet polished in his Eastern manners, greeting Nora Harper with a bow of his head and Evelyn with a polite nod she does not return. You sit at a table nearby, pretending to sip your whiskey while you watch. Nora takes him in with those keen eyes of hers, and within minutes, she knows more about him than she should. He speaks of his journey westward, of silver veins he expects to find near Carson, and of the investors waiting for his assessment. Every word spills easily, as though the saloon is his parlor back home. You can see him relax under Nora's charm, unaware that each detail of his wealth and solitude marks him as prey. As the evening winds on, Nora pours him another glass. You notice her hand hover just a moment too long over the bottle, her smile sharp as glass when she sets it down. Jonathan doesn't question it. The whiskey goes down smooth, but you catch the faint bitterness in the air, laudanum perhaps, the soporific that turns strong men into children, too heavy-limbed to resist. Evelyn stands at the edge of the lamplight, silent, watching his glass more intently than his words. She vanishes for a time, only to reappear with fresh linens folded against her arm. She ascends the staircase, and the sound of her steps feels like a countdown you cannot stop. Jonathan stays longer than most travelers, laughing too loudly, words slurring as he boasts of fortunes yet to be made. Nora's laughter weaves with his, but there is no warmth in her eyes. She studies him like a butcher weighs a carcass, calculating yield. When he finally stands, swaying slightly, Nora guides him upstairs with the ease of a hostess, her hand brushing his arm. Evelyn waits at the far end of the hall, a door already open. You imagine the room beyond the premium chamber with curtains drawn tight, a wardrobe pressed against the far wall, and behind that, a hidden passage carved into the earth itself. You do not follow, but you hear the faint scrape of wood against stone, the sound of hinges not meant for guests. Then silence, thick and unnatural. Minutes stretch into an hour. The inn below grows quiet as the last miners stumble out into the desert night. You sit alone, staring at the empty glass Jonathan left behind. By morning, he is gone. Nora tells the story with casual certainty. Mr. Hale departed at first light, eager to reach Carson City before his competitors. She produces a short note, his signature scrawled across the page, thanking the sisters for their hospitality and excusing his sudden departure. The handwriting looks convincing, but something in the curve of the letters feels off too neat, too practiced. His luggage remains in the storage room, tucked neatly as though awaiting return. You notice the clerk hesitate when you ask, then nod quickly. Repeating the sister's words, Jonathan insisted his bags be forwarded later. No one presses further. In this town, missing men are as common as dust storms. But you can't shake the images from your mind. You picture Jonathan's final moments inside that hidden chamber, his breath slowing as the drug takes hold, wrists bound against cold metal rings hammered into stone, Evelyn's shadow moving with surgical precision, Nora's voice coaxing words from him until his eyes close forever. You imagine the sound of shovels in damp earth, the creak swallowing his body beneath shifting soil. Another man erased from the ledger of the living. It doesn't end with Jonathan. Soon, you notice a pattern. Travelers of means arrive merchants, attorneys, men carrying leather portfolios with contracts and bank drafts. They spend a single night, dine at Nora's table, drink her whiskey, sleep in Evelyn's rooms, and then they vanish. Each one leaving behind a note, each signature uncanny in its familiarity. The locals murmur, but no one dares accuse. The sheriff shrugs, saying men often run from their pasts. The storekeeper grits his teeth when Nora comes asking for more lye soap, more coal oil, more shovels. You see his eyes linger on the stains beneath her gloves, but his lips remain sealed. To speak too loudly in Silver Creek is to invite your own disappearance. One night, you hear it for yourself, a faint scraping through the walls, as if something or someone is being dragged across the floor above. You step into the hallway, holding your breath. At the far end, a door that should be locked stands slightly ajar. Behind it, darkness thicker than night. You glimpse Evelyn's pale face in the gap, her eyes reflecting lantern light like a predator's. Slowly, deliberately, she closes the door. The latch clicks into place, and the sound echoes down the hall like a gunshot. You return to your room, heart hammering. Sleep does not come. Instead, you lie awake listening. The walls seem to whisper, carrying muffled voices from spaces you cannot see. Once, you hear a low moan human, ragged with terror cut short by a sharp thud. After that, only silence, broken by the faint drip of water or blood seeping into soil. At dawn, the inn bustles as though nothing happened. Evelyn serves breakfast with her usual mechanical grace, while Nora chats lightly with miners about the weather. Of Jonathan Hale, there is no trace. His name will fade into rumor, another ghost swallowed by the desert. But you know the truth. You saw the way Nora's eyes lingered too long on his satchel, the way Evelyn moved like a shadow at his side. You heard the sounds no ordinary inn could make. And now, you realize the Harper sisters are not merely innkeepers. They are predators cloaked in lace and courtesy, hunting men who mistake refinement for safety. As you step outside into the harsh Nevada sun, you glance back at the Black Raven Inn. Its black painted sign swings gently in the wind, the carved raven seeming to stare straight at you. The building looks almost civilized, almost welcoming. Yet you feel the weight of unseen graves beneath your boots. And you know Jonathan Hale never left Silver Creek alive. The story does not end with Jonathan Hale. His disappearance becomes only the first thread in a long tapestry of shadows that you are forced to watch unravel inside the Black Raven Inn. Weeks pass, then months, and with each stagecoach that rattles into Silver Creek, another face steps into the sisters' trap. You see the same pattern repeat, as though written into the very bones of the building itself. The next victim is a St. Louis attorney named Charles Redmond, a man with silver cufflinks that gleamed even in the dusty Nevada light. He enters boasting of contracts, his tongue loose from the long journey. Nora greets him with that rehearsed warmth, pouring whiskey as Evelyn slips silently up the stairs. By supper, Charles is laughing with his jacket unbuttoned, telling stories about land deals and court victories. He does not notice the faint cloudiness in his drink, but you do. That night, as the tavern quiets, you hear the familiar creak of the stairwell, the slow tread of Nora's boots guiding him toward the far room. You strain your ears until the sound of a wardrobe scraping echoes faintly through the floorboards. Later, there is only silence broken once by a muffled cry that ends abruptly. By morning, Charles is gone, his breakfast untouched, his luggage vanished. Another letter appears in Nora's neat hand. Signed, C. Redmond with uncanny precision. You recognize the forgery instantly, yet no one else dares mention it. One by one, others follow. Frederick Holcomb, a New York mining investor, disappears after showing Nora documents of promised silver claims. Edward Palmer, a Chicago banker, vanishes without a trace, leaving behind a gold pocket watch that Evelyn forgets to hide. The storekeeper whispers that she purchased 3 shovels in a single week. A prospector swears he saw lantern light moving in the canyon behind the inn long after midnight. The killings grow bolder. You begin to notice details the townsfolk prefer to ignore. Each victim is chosen with care, always wealthy, always alone, always the sort whose absence could be explained away as a man chasing fortune on the frontier. Never miners, never cowhands, never locals, only outsiders with money, swallowed by the Harper sisters' hospitality. And with each disappearance, the inn seems to change. The polished floors feel colder beneath your boots. Shadows linger too long in corners, as if the walls themselves remember the violence hidden within them. When Evelyn passes you in the hallway, you notice her hands tremble ever so slightly, though her eyes remain glassy and unblinking. You wonder how many wrists she has tied, how many throats she has silenced. One night, during a summer storm, you hear it clearer than ever. The wind howls against the shutters. Rain lashes the roof, and through the noise, you catch the sound of shovels biting into wet soil. You push aside your curtain and peer into the darkness. There, faintly illuminated by a swinging lantern, you see Evelyn in the downpour, her dress soaked and clinging to her frame, dragging something heavy toward the creek bed. The shape is limp, unmistakably human. You watch as Nora joins her, both sisters straining to roll the body into a shallow grave before the rain covers their work. The next day, they smile as though nothing happened. The inn fills with laughter and music once again, but the storm left its mark, a length of rope snagged on the creek bank, a patch of earth too freshly turned. You know someone lies beneath, waiting for the water to wash them away. The violence becomes ritual. The sisters refine their methods with each victim. Nora extracts every detail: bank accounts, business partners, family addresses, her charm, a weapon sharper than any knife. Evelyn perfects her forgeries, leaving letters so convincing that wives and partners thousands of miles away never suspect foul play. Together, they form a machine of death disguised as civility, a perfect partnership of charisma and silence. But the bodies leave traces that cannot be hidden forever. Bones begin to surface after heavy rains. Miners whisper of seeing pale hands jutting from the mud. A rancher swears he found a skull lodged in the roots of a mesquite tree downstream. Yet fear keeps their tongues tied. In a town as fragile as Silver Creek, to accuse the Harpers is to risk everything: your business, your safety, your life. You start noticing the smaller signs of decay. The air in the premium rooms carries a sourness no amount of coal oil can mask. Guests complain of strange scratching noises in the walls, only for Nora to laugh them off as rats. Evelyn's gloves are worn thin at the fingertips, always hiding stains that soap cannot fully erase. Even the raven carved into the inn's sign seems darker now, as if the wood itself has absorbed the weight of so many deaths. One evening, you nearly stumble upon the truth yourself. Drawn by a sound behind the kitchen, you follow the narrow corridor until you reach a locked door. From behind it comes a metallic clinking, chains rattling, or perhaps rings embedded in stone. Then a low groan, too human to mistake. Your hand hovers over the handle, but before you can act, Evelyn materializes at your side, her presence sudden and suffocating. She says nothing, only tilts her head and smiles faintly. You retreat, pulse hammering, certain you have come too close. The disappearances become so common that people stop asking. A merchant never reaches Carson. He must have turned south. An investor fails to return home. He likely abandoned his family for frontier freedom. The lies spread easier than the truth, because the truth demands action, and no one in Silver Creek is willing to confront the Harpers. And so the sisters continue, their cycle uninterrupted, their inn thriving as a beacon of false safety. Travelers still arrive, lured by polished windows and warm meals, never realizing they are stepping into a carefully baited snare. You watch, powerless, as another stranger hands over his coat, accepts a drink, and smiles at Nora's gentle questions. By the time the lanterns dim and footsteps creak up the stairs, you already know he will not leave alive. The Black Raven Inn has become a house of disappearances. Each room holds echoes of the dead, each floorboard soaked with secrets too heavy to bear. And you, trapped in this place, begin to wonder how long you can keep watching before the sisters turn their eyes on you. Because they will. Sooner or later, your name will be written in Evelyn's ledger. Your story will end in that hidden chamber. your voice muffled by thick adobe walls, your bones scattered in the silver creek bed. And when it does, the town will nod in silence, pretend not to notice, and the sisters will pour another drink as if nothing ever happened. The whispers finally grow too loud to ignore. By now, you have counted them, at least 6 men gone since Jonathan Hale first vanished. Each disappearance leaves behind the same trail of forged notes, abandoned luggage, and families writing letters that never receive honest replies. You feel the weight of their absence pressing against your chest, but in Silver Creek, speaking the truth aloud is like loading a gun and aiming it at yourself. Still, rumors creep through the cracks. The storekeeper tells you in a low voice that Nora came for coal oil again, far too much for lamps, enough to scrub blood from stone. A ranch hand swears he saw Evelyn slipping into the canyon with a wheelbarrow at dawn. A miner insists he heard screams muffled by the wind while stumbling drunk past the inn. But when you ask for more, when you push, they all shake their heads. Best not to pry. They warn. You want to end up like the others eventually. The whispers reach the ears of the territorial marshal. You see his deputy arrive one morning, hat pulled low, dust thick on his boots. He asks questions politely, careful not to provoke. He visits the inn, and you watch as Nora greets him with that same gracious smile, offering whiskey and bread as if she's welcoming an old friend. Evelyn hovers nearby, silent as always. The deputy does not stay the night. He leaves before sunset, riding hard back toward Prescott. But weeks later, you stumble across his private notes, hidden in the journal of a man too suspicious to let things rest. In them, he writes of unease, of the sisters' rehearsed answers, of the way Nora seemed too eager to explain Jonathan Hale's absence before the question was asked. He writes of handwriting that looked just a fraction too precise, of luggage left in storage that no guest would willingly abandon, the official report. Nothing. The marshal rules Jonathan Hale and the others men of restless spirit who likely abandoned their lives in the East for the lawless freedom of the frontier. Case closed. You realize the truth, the law, is not blind here. It is bought. The Harpers know every weakness, every debt, every secret worth keeping. But even their influence cannot silence nature itself. One February morning, after a week of heavy rain, the creek swells and bursts its banks. You stand among the crowd that gathers when a boy pulls a bone from the muddy shore. Thinking it belongs to an animal, it does not. The femur is unmistakably human. The marrow long gone, but the shape clear as daylight. The discovery sends ripples of fear through Silver Creek, but the authorities move quickly to smother it. They dig a shallow grave, bury the bones in secret, and tell the town it was an unfortunate miner, lost in a drunken quarrel. Yet you know better. You saw the cord still knotted around the bone, the same coarse rope used to tie back the curtains at the Black Raven Inn. At night, you hear the voices in your own head. Sometimes they sound like wind scratching across the shutters, sometimes like whispers crawling through the walls. The more you listen, the more you believe they are not just memories. They are the voices of the dead Jonathan Hale, Charles Redman, Frederick Holcomb, all crying out from the shallow graves behind the inn. Their words blur together. But one thing is clear: they were not ready to die. You begin to see them in your dreams. Jonathan's face pale, his lips blue, mouthing silent words as he stares at you across a lantern-lit table. Redmond's cufflinks gleam like mirrors, reflecting your own terror back at you. Evelyn appears behind them, always silent, always smiling. Her gloved hands resting on their shoulders as though they belong to her forever. The townspeople claim the land is cursed, that the creek carries restless spirits. A widow in Silver Creek swears she heard knocking on her door at midnight, and when she opened it, no one was there, only muddy footprints leading away toward the inn. A miner wakes screaming, convinced he saw a figure at the foot of his bed whispering, "Find me." You tell yourself these are only stories, tricks of grief and guilt. But when you pass the inn late one evening, you swear you see candlelight flickering behind an upstairs window, and within it, a shadow jerking against the wall arms pulled taut, head snapping back as though bound by invisible chains. Then the light goes out. The night swallows everything. The investigation never deepens. Sheriff's men accept the sisters' smiles, their generous donations, their perfect politeness. Yet every so often, you find scraps of truth hidden in private journals or overheard confessions. A letter smuggled from San Francisco, demanding answers about a missing husband. A note in a deputy's diary, hinting that the inn's back wall does not match the original blueprints. A bartender muttering that Nora always insists on cleaning the premium rooms herself, never letting staff step inside after certain guests stay the night. The most damning evidence comes from your own ears. One stormy night, as thunder cracks across the valley, you creep toward the inn's rear wall. Rain blinds you. Mud clings to your boots, but you hear it clear shovels striking wet earth. Grunts of exertion. A body dragged through the creek. You see lanterns bobbing like will-o'-the-wisps, and the sisters' figures bent over the ground. When lightning splits the sky, you glimpse Evelyn's face, streaked with mud, eyes wild and glinting with something far worse than fear. You stumble back, heart racing, praying they didn't see you. For nights afterward, you cannot shake the feeling that Evelyn knows. She passes you in town, her gaze lingering too long, her smile curling as though she has already measured your worth. You want to scream, to drag the truth into the open, but no one listens. The community is complicit, bound by silence and debt. The inn funds the school, repairs the church roof, pays for the sheriff's gambling losses. To accuse the Harpers is to accuse the whole town of cowardice. And so the horror continues. Men vanish. The creek swells. Bones rise. You walk among the living with the uneasy certainty that the dead are trying to speak through every creak of wood, every whisper of wind. One night, as you lie awake, the voices grow louder, so loud you swear the dead are at your bedside. You sit up, drenched in sweat, and realize the sound is not a dream. It is real, drifting through the cracks in your wall. A chorus of whispers, pleading, warning, condemning, and threaded among them, softer but sharper than all the rest, is Evelyn's voice. She says only one thing: you're next. The storm comes without warning. You wake to the roar of thunder rolling across the valley, rattling the windows of your small room. Rain lashes against the roof of the Black Raven Inn, harder and harder until it feels as though the sky itself wants to tear the building down. You sit upright, heart already uneasy, because storms in Nevada often bring more than water. They bring things hidden in the earth back into the light. That night, the ground gives way. You hear it first as a groan deep beneath the building, then the sudden snap of timber, and finally, the terrible roar of collapsing stone. The inn shakes violently. Lanterns swing. Glasses tumble from shelves. And somewhere upstairs, Evelyn screams, not in fear, but in anger, as though the earth itself has betrayed her. When dawn breaks, the truth lies exposed. A section of the hillside behind the inn has crumbled, ripping open what should have remained forever concealed. You join the townspeople as they gather in the mud, staring in horrified silence. There, half buried in the clay, you see at the edge of a hidden chamber, its walls dark with stains that no rain can wash away. Inside, the stench hits you like a physical blow. The room is small, no larger than a cell. Its dirt floor streaked with black that seeps deep into the soil. Metal rings protrude from the walls, iron rusted but strong, each one worn smooth where a rope once pulled tight. You see scraps of cloth clinging to nails, a shoe half buried in mud, a pocket watch glinting faintly in the lantern light. The chamber breathes of death, heavy and undeniable. But the horror does not stop there. A narrow passage leads from the chamber toward the creek bed, the earth hollowed into a tunnel just wide enough for a body to be dragged through. You crouch and peer inside. And though rainwater floods the passage now, you imagine the dozens who were pulled through it, lifeless and silent, their blood soaking into the clay. The crowd murmurs, some crossing themselves, others whispering curses. But when they turn to look for the Harper sisters, the inn is empty. Sometime in the night, perhaps even as the storm raged, they slipped away, leaving behind only the wreckage of their crimes. On a table in their private quarters lies the final piece of proof, a leather-bound ledger, its pages filled with names and numbers, written in code but too precise to ignore. You trace the entries with shaking fingers. Boston stock processed. Chicago banker yield satisfactory. Each victim reduced to a line in an account book. Their lives measured in gold and deeds. Their deaths a cold calculation. You realize how close you came to becoming one of these entries yourself. How many times had Evelyn's eyes lingered on you, measuring, deciding? How often had Nora coaxed you into revealing more than you should, her voice smooth, her smile masking the knife beneath the marshal's men arrive by midday. But their faces are pale. They cannot deny what has been uncovered: personal belongings of missing men, forged documents, and most damning of all, the human remains unearthed near the creek. Bones broken, wrists still bound by rope, skulls split clean by blunt force. The ground itself vomits up the truth long buried by silence. Yet even as the evidence mounts, fear grips the town. No one knows where Nora and Evelyn have gone. Some say they boarded a stagecoach south before the storm, their trunks heavy with stolen gold. Others whisper they vanished into the desert, hiding in caves until the search ends. A few even claim to see them riding under the moonlight, two dark figures fleeing into Mexico where no law will follow. You feel no relief in their absence. If anything, the fear deepens, because now you understand their true strength was never only in murder, it was in survival. In the way they moved like shadows through each new town, feeding on greed and complacency. They will find another Silver Creek. They will open another inn. They will smile again at weary travelers, pouring whiskey smooth as silk, until the next grave swallows another name. Standing at the edge of the ruined chamber, you cannot silence the thought their work is not finished. Somewhere, even now, Nora is rehearsing her gracious words, and Evelyn is sharpening her knives in silence. And one day, on some forgotten road, another weary soul will see the light of an inn in the dark and step inside believing they have found safety. But you know better. You have seen what waits behind the door, what lies beneath the floor. And the truth will haunt you forever. The storm passes, but its scars remain. Days later, you walk through the ruins of the Black Raven Inn, now abandoned, its shutters banging in the desert wind. The once polished floors are slick with mud, the staircase splintered, the walls stripped bare by those who scavenged what they could. And yet, the silence feels anything but empty. You swear the rooms still carry echoes, laughter too sharp, footsteps too deliberate, and the faint scrape of a wardrobe hiding more than clothes. The townsfolk refuse to speak the sisters' names. They bury the unearthed bones in shallow graves, mark them only with wooden crosses, and call it done. The marshal's report closes with a single line: cause unknown, presumed violence of the territory. But you know it was no faceless violence. It was Nora's smile, Evelyn's stare, their ledger of death written beneath candlelight. You never see them again. Those stories linger like smoke. Travelers whisper of two women running a boarding house in Sonora, Mexico, where merchants vanish just as quickly as they did in Silver Creek. Another tale places them in Texas, calling themselves widows, earning trust before men disappear along the border trails. Nothing is proven. Nothing is certain. But uncertainty is its own kind of terror, because it means the hunt may not be over. You carry their shadow wherever you go. Each time you step into a roadside inn, you watch the hostess's eyes too carefully. You study every glass of whiskey as though it holds poison. You listen for the faintest scrape in the walls at night, the sound of chains in the dark, and when you dream, it is always the same, a door closing softly behind you, and Evelyn's voice whispering that one word next. So you ask yourself, and you ask the listener, if two women could hide their slaughter behind lace curtains and fine manners, how many others are still out there, waiting? When you check into a quiet inn on a lonely road, when you hear the floor creak just outside your room, do you truly know who holds the key to your door? Hey guys, if you made it this far into the darkness with me, Let me know what you think. In the comments, what would you do if you realized your innkeepers were watching you? Planning your last night before you leave. Hit like, subscribe, and share this story if you dare. Because remember, the most terrifying monsters aren't ghosts. They're the ones who smile, pour you a drink, and wait until the lantern goes out.